Keep up for you.
Got so many tasks. Give me 1 second. I think we're gonna
Keep up for you. That's all my young kids.
It was 30-minute conversation.
Again, we're gonna try to compile the notes, but I think and
No more purpose.
get that written down, we can understand, especially.
I know. Feel like they could have.
This really?
Posters and resources.
Questions about that, because I am competition, how are you?
So my question is.
And I didn't think I was.
So the middle school suite put on so much stuff.
Okay.
So in the middle school suite, that's. I have here. So hi. For multiple lessons. You already started. I need to be on some like sort of your role. I was like, be my person. Well, I did all.
And I was like, my mother, what is it?
So what we could do.
You look so youthful. Somebody told me I looked 24, and I was like, yeah, okay. But no.
Yeah, again, I don't think that they need it.
What do you think? Never those weeks. They are not, these are not those weeks. I am. Wow, so where is that?
What would your priority?
So when you said that there's nothing to I
think have another.
not
See what I'm saying?
We'll get rid of so.
Don't mind if you talk about it.
Or maybe we don't do rocking chairs.
Because I don't always think mine is there.
That's okay, just for like.
It's a part.
Yeah.
It's a part.
But that is fair, that is true.
A smaller table. She put, you know, I have a lot of and.
How are you? It's new, but so it's a new thing out there. Somebody like that one, I was like, why isn't it so strong?
And then.
I might get it.
And then it's also things like.
It's new.
And it's. Go in, get a journal.
My friends from I don't understand how it is. And
So those this. Because they do.
And it makes you feel crazy.
They right now have a.
And it's unfair that my child is saying it's crazy thing, yeah, and I know what I want to say, and then I learn my knowledge in that.
Yeah, so. No, what I can assign them though.
What did I come up here for?
Slideshow.
Always had that girl, because they hate you, but
This I have to. And I don't know that I have hands.
you want to go.
Then they.
Yeah. You too.
Yeah.
No, they're not. And you close to the desk. It actually is not.
Well, yeah, it's not January.
You know what? Mid-October, so it'll be. Love you. It will be.
Love you, then the winter's gonna come.
The winter's like a solid speed. All of a sudden.
And basically lasts all the way to June. You know what? I don't like Exactly. Yes. And they don't need it. No, he needs to hold,
There's one like the hazard in the back.
Yeah, I checked.
Okay.
They were the same.
Okay, great. I know it's gonna get to somebody.
And you don't know, but you put them in there.
weather.
Sorry,
I'm working in a lab. I'm here on that now. Yeah, so she's in her postgrad program at Baylor. So she's been working in the lab for 6 months. Yeah. Yes, and but she's, her ultimate goal is med school. This was her postgrad, so. So, okay, I saw the little ones, I was like, I was, why you already?
Oh.
Oh, how, yeah, it's good to see you, thank you. I was talking to my good friend.
It's actually deeper than that.
Her daughter, my daughter both in college, the same time, so. And she's a pediatric dentist. My friend. So she called today, she said, tell me about Facebook. She had like a degree in Spanish.
Was here to do.
And now she realizes that she wants to be.
She apparently went to
But she has to be
and when she came back in, they just.
So I was like,
Because it.
yeah, she's trying to learn what she's starting from. Well, that's Spanish.
They assume that.
What she has that.
Well, probably there.
Hers.
First she needs to take a sign.
Right.
She can take it without
Not
sign.
one.
It's no,
I'm sorry, and that would be a random mistake.
not even hard.
I choose to have.
So.
She's taking a sign.
I don't know. As.
It's good that.
My sister.
She'll find
But it's a process. If she didn't go back out. There's like a reason.
So it just kind of.
That's so.
It just came out. So weird, yes.
Okay, so this is your space. I do it like I just.
I get it there, she would go in the tree.
That's.
And I was like, but I was reading the word. It's not.
Those in maybe this is wonderful.
I know.
Okay,
They want to get on there, so. I've never ever.
So yeah, so you tell me what you
Well, I got to chat with you. Definitely be, I need to buy you a suit or two. Even maybe a hard time.
I can't.
Very important.
Oh, you're
The challenge down is these, but it does take more time to work.
And you have a couple books, right?
Yeah.
No, I don't hear anybody else play.
Yeah, some. Oh, no, I'm not. I didn't have one. I saw that one. But yes, yeah.
And I have a little foul thing underneath it.
That they funded and it's funded and that was and I had a couple of years old. And then now, and they also, you know, that's mission.
My wife's. And,
But I also,
work,
it's a little frustrating that
workshop.
they don't seem to appreciate. Something you can learn. Anywhere. I really appreciate it.
But there are
A lot of. And they were so grateful for free public education. Their parents had come from God doesn't know where, what kind of hardship. So the first experience I've been at a public school, they not have that. The other kids were like, man, do I have to go to school? Different. No. They really have to go there. You know, that well long, you know, we can go through. We were not on generation is well, what generation is?
That's a lot of, I mean, every day.
So, I didn't even need the, it's the topic. Yeah, so you might even, you know, not. Challenges. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. But it's just think of it all good and y'all done just. What, outside yourself? No, I just mean, remember that too. Giving you a hard time that. But some parents should probably give them that every single day. Oh, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Wow, you go to school. Right, get in this car. You go to school for 3 days and I'll be a big. I actually were good for all those. The one is here is in 10th grade.
I cannot wait to go.
My kids have never missed 2 days. My son has. She's missed 2 days. No, she didn't. Very.
One more
But they really legitimately said, oh, you don't really be sad going to school. That's the least you can do. Show up. Show up. That is your job. You don't get to take every fire. That you really can. You know, it's so nice to share. Another thing that's so
Like Sharon's definitely losing that and then.
and it's kind of unfortunate that you don't remember. But you got it. Like, yeah, that was morning fire. Yesterday morning, like the last one, post fire.
She's older school.
No, she's over here, and that's what she said. I didn't, they're not, that's not. You have to take to the road. Exactly. Exactly what I said. Even up here, there's a stereo, you know. And then she had the opportunity to do something that she did, through the, Saturday program, she gets a Saturday program, and their reward was The same place. So that's only 2 weeks. Like, I was really feeling all that.
Will this be down there in the 16th? That's what she was.
Oh, yeah.
That's how it
And she decided she wanted to go.
Yeah, what?
And I
School.
I want to go to see a Griffin Park.
I felt like.
Is what like that.
Also, the
So it's
idea
gonna go.
is entertaining.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Everything else,
And no matter how I feel, that I want to be entertaining, then I should not show up.
You were gonna have to almost
That's
that
what
we're
we're
trying
trying
to
to
see.
do.
And then that's because
I like
outliers
it.
will
Yeah.
more lean to tables into some.
And my son, Brian, or
Their position.
she's a senior, graduated Saturday, but
Oh,
Right.
he's been. She is like, you did well.
Yeah.
The other
side,
okay.
Putting it up for.
I should have been,
We could.
Oh,
Electric.
So it's fine.
you know, whatever it's going to. So it's the first thing from.
And then what we did.
Everybody I know.
I asked them,
Revenue.
This one's gonna be, even though they're not.
So the problem is we just.
It started out as it was 2 years ago. They expanded.
But the point is, we're doing it right there in that case area.
That's what, no, it's up that way.
Yeah.
It's a very different.
Right. And that's why we need steady, that we need more money, we need more money. Then every time we look at it.
But zero science
Something happened.
and research. I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but.
She'll figure it out on the way.
That's what I'm thinking. Some construction work they have this.
Just made her request for the other day. There's one in actually, I was back to.
Terry is out of town. So for.
So.
I saw it was on your road, that I was like, that's what it is. They were just maybe. 100 in 5 years. I didn't realize it. I didn't, but I was just looking at 500 years old. So she wasn't happy. We did not, because we were going to do it, I said, not me, we didn't meet anybody, we were gonna do it at the May meeting, and we didn't, because she wasn't there, she had to be there.
Deeply, especially for the honors.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
You can't use some. Really.
Okay. I didn't realize I was. No, but that's a little number. That's, yeah. And so.
We still have to vote on it, and you'll never know if you don't.
Yeah.
And. We don't have to turn off my camera. Every day, brands are fix that.
You show what it is.
Computer in the bed. Yeah.
Looking around the damn-
But I guess my kids are like this. Those things.
And then the really soft.
They still know it's racing numbers. But we got like.
Yeah, I can't. You check it 14 times and you still can't.
Whenever you want to talk to bank, I'm available.
Yeah, we're gonna share that. That's what I'm gonna talk to.
Sooner than later.
Yeah. Yes, yes, we did.
So it is. Lots of other shit goes on really.
Oh, yes, you did, yes, you did.
I thought
There's
that-
like one of her girl and.
I think there again, she always we did, we did that. Speaking about something like. That's me. And they're going. Janet got up until 2027. And so she said, yeah, but this family doesn't sell. I said, she said, I was like, what do you mean? She said,
She did it. They were.
She said, but we're doing on the next check working, right?
Okay, so I said, I only answered twice. Okay, so then I got you.
I said, your baby's my mom said.
Bless it, I don't remember.
Yeah, okay.
I'm so glad because I was always thinking, I was like, we voted on them and they're telling me. No, because we didn't do it in May when I remember. It was one line. All together sausage. We were trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Oh.
We added, this month March, so years ago, so.
Oh, bless you.
Oh, no.
Last 3 years. So today's just
It's making me.
It's what's not gonna happen.
But she's not.
She's not up to October.
I was gonna be like married or is it like?
I didn't
know.
No, she didn't, I really cook, I literally cook, but I need to. I don't see her. Oh, shit.
Okay.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is. Sarah. I'm trying to get you, but.
My sorry, if you didn't use it, you could be. I said, "Dude, okay, I wouldn't be on the-"
If we wanted to.
Ladder.
Probably cleaner, but.
We said, "You know,
Like, they probably don't support that.
I've been raised on.
You never had that.
Okay.
That's the way. He's trying to help you because all those things are probably.
Okay.
So just bring me in. No, get it all here. All right. You look like mirror and. Well, that was. Oh, this is. He's been over here. He didn't post
But they're,
The way she is.
What did she do?
She was the first nightmare.
Clearly, this is something.
And they said it's like,
There's two.
So a certificate or a.
They can't even do this.
That sucks. Wow. It's not. I'm so sorry.
And it's like, it's really here.
Oh, I have a, oh my gosh, one of my best friends.
Because I didn't know.
What?
Yes, for the same thing.
When you're like, you have to know.
At least it's not.
And-
This is very.
Initial thing.
Yes.
Wow, which is it to the
Yes.
which is huge.
I know we have a packed agenda, so it's probably a good idea to go ahead and get started. I know that I saw.
I was getting that.
Yep. So we can vote tonight or in October.
A new 3-year term.
And
Yeah, it's like, I don't need to end the party, let the people go.
Okay, welcome to everyone. This is our meeting of the year. That sounds kind of crazy. Year went really fast, but I'm glad to see everyone here. And it's always better to do things with food. We are going to begin the meeting by reading the mission of the false. So if everyone either has their board books open or they have it in their heart and they remember it, let's do that together. The mission of Paul is to educate our students and to develop in them the capacity to be responsible citizens, independent thinkers, and leaders. And then we are going to begin the meeting with a vote for 2 of our board members whose terms are up for renewal. And they are, I just forgot Brandy's last name. Wood, perimenopause, forgive me. It's gonna be all right. Miss Wood and Erin is renewing her term as well as Shamira Wood. So I'm gonna pass the floor to Jen for the vote.
Actually, you do the only one she does the vote for is the chair and the vice chair at the end of the year. So she could make a motion to approve.
I was gonna ask our governance board chair to make a motion for
Yes,
the vote.
I'd like to move to renew the board terms for Aaron Albright, Brittany Wood, and Shamira Williams.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sterling. We will begin by, Shamira's on the.
But I thought we had done Shamira and
We did,
March,
you're right, and
yeah, so it's.
so I'm saying this so I know that Shamira can hear me, because she is not in the room. So there was an error, I remember that there was an error in our last board meeting, which was in May, where I came to the impression that there were 2 terms that were up and that Shamira's was one of them and we needed to hold a vote. That is not the case. We voted on Shamira in March, and as I mentioned, woman of a certain age, my memory just didn't collect that, and then we didn't meet in April. So we do not have to vote on Shamira, we just have to vote on Ms. Wood and on Erin renewing her term. That said, we had a motion and it was seconded, so we will begin with Erin. Vote, and we have to call for everyone, so I will go through the board. I will begin with I will begin in the room. And go in the order of the people who are seated. Jennifer.
Yeah.
Thank you. Lorianne.
Yeah.
You can't vote. Is Pam online, Manya? No.
Pam says she'll be here till 6:30.
6:30, okay. So skip, Dr. Malachi.
Yes.
Thank you. Shamira, are you able to speak online?
Yes.
Thank you. And Sterling.
Yes.
And I am yes as well. Thank you. It's moved, seconded, and you have a unanimous vote. Yeah. Second one, Ms. Wood, we can do it, and we've checked with our governance chair to make sure that we can do it in absence. And so we're gonna vote on renewing Ms. Wood's term, just for transparency. Ms. Wood's child did graduate, she is transitioning from a parent trustee to a full trustee. And so I just want to make sure that that has been stated for the record. And so I will again go in reverse order, just for fairness.
Yes.
Thank you. I am a yes. Shamira?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Malachi? Thank you. Erin?
Yes.
Thank you. Lorianne?
Yes.
And Jen?
Yes.
Thank you. And so we have voted on both of our board members. Congratulations to both of you. We're absolutely very excited that the consistency of our board is maintaining, and I'm sorry, Sterling, I'm borrowing your laptop because mine tapped out. And so now that we will vote to approve the May meeting minutes, and those are in your board book if you need to review them. Are there any questions about the minutes from the May meeting? I see no questions. I'm gonna ask for a motion from the floor to approve the minutes as they are entered into our board books.
So moved.
Thank you, Sterling. Can I get a second? Second. Thank you, Dr. Malachi. And I'm going to start, no, I can't. I'm gonna start with Erin.
It wasn't yours.
Oh, you weren't
Mistake.
Great.
Sorry.
Lorian. Yeah, that's a yes? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Jen?
Yes.
Dr. Malachi, thank you. I'm a yes, and
Yeah.
Sterling, and Shamira?
Shamira wasn't.
Shamira wasn't here, thank you.
Yeah, I wasn't here.
You weren't here, okay, thank you for letting us know. So for the members who voted on the May minutes and are present, they have been seconded, moved, and so they will be entered into the record. Next. Is such a gift. And next we're gonna move on to reports from our department leaders. And so I'm gonna yield to Dr. White to introduce those reports.
All right, so in keeping with our board roadmap, which is pretty trusty and handy to keep us on track over the course of the year, we're going to have department closeouts by members of the executive team who will remember they could visit the board meeting 3 times a year to share at the beginning of the year their key priorities and initiatives by department. In the middle of the year to share updates, and at the end of the year to share closeouts. But before we get into that, I have shared this news with the executive committee. I want to share with the whole board that our dearly loved Charlotte Renee Span is transitioning out at the end of the year. She will not love that I'm making an announcement because she is asked to go with no pomp and circumstance. We'll try to do this little pomp and circumstance as possible, but definitely wanted to make sure that the full board knows that, and once again acknowledge just the absolute dynamic member of the Paul executive team that she has been. She's been a cornerstone for the rebuild and the development of this organization, and her attention to detail, planning and preparation to make sure that all of the beautiful systems and structures and policies that we have built continue to live through the members of her team that she is so dutifully groomed to prepare for such a time as this. We just appreciate that. Paul closing out its 25 years and beginning a new era is a huge thing, but she has undoubtedly been such a key part of making sure that we make it to that place. So could not let her leave without making sure I said that and let the school board know that, so you can love on her as she transitions, not into another life time, but she's still be around, but transitioning to a new, a new stage in life. So thank you, Dr. Ryan. Yep. So with that, actually gonna open up with in a kind of a different order. We're gonna start today with operations. Ms. Yoakum is closing out her second year with us and gonna walk us through the priorities for her department and how we're closing those out.
Feels like a pop quiz. I did not know that I would be going first tonight. So as a reminder, our goal for this year of the operations team was to realize a high quality and tailored student data system, student information system, as the ultimate source of student information at Paul. And that carried through all of the teams on the operations team. So the first is, I don't know how to adequately describe where Paul was when it comes to our data system 1 year ago. But to say that we used it in the bare minimum way, we entered attendance into it, some days. We entered grades into it, but it was not a robust data system. If we wanted to find a parent's phone number or anything else, we would go to a different system. In 1 year, we have made PowerSchool our ultimate data system. We have already cleaned up the data in that system. We have begun training our parents and families on how to log in and see attendance and grades in the system. And the real thing I want to talk about here is in 1 year, we went from barely knowing how to use PowerSchool to last Wednesday in this room, we hosted the first ever DC PowerSchool users group, which meant that the PowerSchool users from across the district gathered here. It's the first ever of its kind. We had about 40 participants. Aussie came and participated. Aussie has refused to participate in any self-school gathering of PowerSchool because they don't want to make it seem like they're endorsing one data system over the other. But it was so good that they had to come. Like they just could not stay away. We gathered all the right people. We had vendors that have systems that support PowerSchool. This was an incredible opportunity for Paul to be a leader in data systems in DC, but for everyone to really connect with one another, tips and tricks and what works for you, and at all levels. So we had our entire data and family engagement team join this. So our PowerSchool administrator was the host and she gave high-level trainings, but our enrollment team was here learning how they can use PowerSchool on a daily basis to really meet the needs, protect the safety of our students. So this was a big win for Paul and our data team. The next goal was to implement a data-driven and consistent marketing strategy to unite the Paul community. Last time I was here, I talked about our brand book that we launched and the wonderful tools that has given us. And we've started in this spring of enrollment season, launching some of those tools. So if you follow our Instagram page, we've actually been making posts on it for the first time in many months because we have staff and graphic designers who can help us make really informative posts. So follow us if you don't already. Stay tuned because we're going to be creating a new Facebook page over the summer. And we're really excited about how we're using social media to inform families, to unite our social media and inform families. And then the last thing, and it might not, I don't know if you have this on your little iPads. It's not easy to see, but this little graph table, I'm just gonna point to it because I'm so proud of it. So this table, this is where we talk about our student enrollment. And this table, these lines are our projection, our completion of student enrollment throughout the past, this year and the past 3 years. We are the green line this year, and for the first time in 4 years, we are ahead of where we have ever been with student enrollment in 4 years. 4 years. I'm sure, well, I'm only doing the data for 4 years. I'm sure this is the earliest we have ever been this progressive on enrollment. So we hit 700, our target is 769, 770. We hit 700. And the really important thing here is that not only have we done this, but we're collecting more data than we have ever collected before. So you used to be able to just fill out your DCRB, prove your residency, and complete enrollment. We require birth certificates or some form, proof that the person enrolling the child is their legal guardian. Health information for students in grades where immunizations are required, and a very detailed, many of you know, online questionnaire to make sure that we have accurate and up-to-date information on our families. And so we are very proud of how that's done. Yeah.
Are the students involved in the social media? Like, is there a social media club, class, something?
So that is something that's part of our engagement model that we're looking at putting in place for next year.
Because they know more about
There's so much
the
more.
body, about how to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that would be very successful. Also, what do you think is the reason that you did so, I'm glad, but that you did so well with the enrollment this year? What's different?
Me, no. Because I always say it's not. It's not. We transitioned how we approach enrollment to a team-based process. Miss Carlo, who you all know, is amazing. And for the last 4+ years, she has personally enrolled every 750, 60, 70 students in this building. And that's not humanly possible. It just isn't. And so what we did was we got her a team that is a really effective team. And we used our communications to really blitz on the communications. So we didn't even have to start asking teachers to start helping us until the end of May. We're typically, there would be lots of crosstalk and people wouldn't know who to go to. So this year, it's very clear. At middle school, this is your enrollment specialist. High school, this is your enrollment specialist. They help you with everything. They can also case manage all of the families on their list. So they know at any given time, so-and-so, I've called them 4 times and they haven't called me back. I know she's working on just getting that driver's license renewed. I know, so they can manage that and really work it on the timeline. Also, lots of free lunches, balloons, candy.
There's popcorn at seasonal today.
And nuts.
Yes. But we really used Cecil Middleton Day as a kickoff event. I think we ended up with coming out of Cecil Middleton at 200 enrolled, which was not all at that event, but our total enrollment at that point was at 200. So we've focused on the high quality and getting it done fast in a way that just hasn't been the priority. So hopefully the staff will get to do regular work and enjoy their summers a little bit, track down the couple of missing things as opposed to the slog of April through August of slogging through that work.
Yeah, and I would say that, operations for the past 9 years, I think that this team's been together, with, Yogi in the last 2 years. Those first at least 5 to 6 years, which were somewhat interrupted by COVID, were around building infrastructure, like actual literal infrastructure processes and procedures around the things that were most explosive and potentially injurious to the organization. So our practices are related to academics and HR and special education, because it'll close down a building, but needing to transition, I would say just a different approach into that operations seat for the era that we were entering into, that was more routinized and structured. And so that's what we had last year when it was time to do enrollment. I remember having our check-ins, she was like, no, trust me, it's gonna be fine. Like, everyone should just back up off of us a little bit. And I'm like,
It was scary.
Yeah, she was like, I'm gonna ask Susan not to send this weekly report anymore. Oh, no. That's about, but, the reality of it is that you have to let go of ad hoc if you want structure and repeatability. And that was something, especially in enrollment, that we have struggled to get to repeatability year over year. And that's because, one, it was a task that was distributed in shops that it should not have been in. It is a function of operations and finance, and that's where it should live. But some of everyone, Sandy's held it, some blending of Reagan, I held it for a little bit, like it's just been all over the place. So I think that it really is, building out those systems and routines in that component, in that compartment of the organization, so that we can come away from the worries about enrollment, which we have been plagued by in years past.
And why this is so important, we would is that now we know where we need to do a little bit more targeted recruitment. Because we do still, we've got great re-enrollment, but we do still need, some fifth graders, please, anybody fifth graders. But also some ninth graders, we still need some students in those grades. But now we can target that and focus on just those areas as opposed to, waiting until. I mean, really, it's not uncommon for schools to not be able to do that until August.
Right.
And we will not be, we're getting offers out now that most schools won't be able to get out until August or September. So that's why it's really important.
Thanks, Yoga. Reagan, students report.
Yes. Good evening. So starting with special population, these were some of our goals for this year. And I want to say that compliance, we have moved far beyond compliance in our SIS, in our, our special programs being a goal for us. When we became our own LEA 9 years ago, it was a mess. We were so in trouble in terms of compliance, and really put some strong tactics in place to ensure that we were showing up at compliant in our systems, right? That IEP meetings were happening, that et cetera, et cetera. And that is no longer an issue for us and has not been for a long time. And so that's why you don't see it there. We're really focused on compliance becoming alive in the classroom more so than what's in a computer system. This past year, and I did not even put it here as one of our points of celebration, because it's just what we do when it comes to compliance. We were rated A+ with our SPED report card this past year. It's great. It's great that we are there, but it also allows us now to be focused on how do we ensure that we are intensifying our services for our scholars that need it the most. And so this past year, we were focused on revamping our AYA model. AYA is our sheltered classroom model in the middle school. Our highest need scholars, there are level 4 scholars that really need to be in a sheltered setting all day, most of the day, where they can get intensive instruction, social emotional support, and just to prepare them for them to be able to come out of that setting at some point. And it needed some work. Our scholars are really there, but we did not feel that they were thriving in the way that we needed them to thrive. And so that was sort of a year-long project, was really revamping that structure. It's looking so good. We are at a place now, you're gonna hear me speak about this when we talk about our goals for this upcoming years. Now we're looking at our sheltered model in our high school and just making sure that for our high school scholars that they are, they're not in a setting all day long, but they do get intensive academic support, that they're getting the most, right? So we're at that point now that we can start studying our high school model to just make sure that our scholars that really need the intensive academic support are getting it. We also focused on implementation of scholar-led IEP meetings in the high school. So our juniors and seniors all led their IEP meetings this past year, which was amazing. I sat in a couple of them, it was just goosebumps, talking about their data and their growth over time and their goals. And our 9th and 10th graders started preparing. Some of them were able to lead their own IEP meetings, but our goal was for them to at least be able to prepare for their IEP meetings. And they all were there. We have some more goals coming up regarding scholar-led IEP meetings, because that's where we want to be. We want 100% of our scholars with IEPs to be speaking about their experience here at Paul, their goals, and what they think that they need to be successful here, and also celebrating their wins. Strong implementation of services and accommodations to ensure that our scholars are academically strong and that they're growing. And we have work to do. Our scholars definitely, many of our scholars with IEPs or special populations are performing below grade level. And we are seeing steady growth, but there's more growth that's needed. And so that was an area that we focused on this year and will be an area that we continue to focus on. Professional development is huge. This past year, we really focused on our behavior support staff. We have 14 to 15 at any given time, as much as 17 dedicated aides that are providing one-to-one support for our highest need scholars so that they can thrive here at Hall. And these professionals do not come with training, right? There just is no training that really, makes you show up as like the best dedicated aide. And so we have been struggling with this for a few years and developed a professional development institute for our dedicated aides and have really been working to increase their capacity. We are way beyond the point now of you need to stay with your scholar all the time, or you need to sit next to your scholar. The work that they're doing now is like, how do you help to provide academic support to your scholar? How do you help to implement accommodations and modifications? Because you have a relationship with them and you also serve as a resource to teachers. And so great place to be, still have more work to do, for sure. And also post-secondary transition planning is an area that we have been really focused on, will continue to focus on. But our scholars are really doing well with meeting their post-secondary transition goals they have as part of their IEPs. All students that are age 14 and over have post-secondary transition goals, and all of them are doing a great job in meeting, but we definitely just want to continue to make sure that those plans are strong and that their goals are robust. And then a strong oversight of non-public placement for our scholars to ensure progress. And this was an area that, when we first became our own LEA, that we were really concerned about. We inherited many scholars that were in non-public placement and they weren't doing well. And they weren't progressing in the way that we wanted them to. And so our assistant director of special populations, she owns case management for our scholars that are in non-public, and all of them really have robust plans in place. She's meeting with the non-publics every single month, hearing how they're doing, and just really close case management. We had another scholar who graduated this past year. Tristan graduated, John. Tristan graduated. And this is a scholar that really struggled, not just here at Paul in 7th grade, but even when he went to his non-public placement, and just to see him graduating and graduating with honors, doing really well, that was just amazing. And so just, making sure that our scholars who are non-public placements are progressing the way that we want them to progress, that college is possible for them and that they know that is the next step. And making sure that if that's not a choice that they choose, that they have a strong plan in place beyond that. And we have 9 scholars in non-public and all of them are doing really well. So our next area of focus for this past school year was culture, attendance, and scholar support. And definitely we were focused on developing and implementing strong culture systems, especially in our high school. We intensive support that we had to provide to our high school just with transition, and definitely very proud of some of the work that we were able to do this year in terms of having some strong systems in place that will maintain and continue into next year. Scholar action planning for our high needs scholars is another area that we have been focused on, just making sure that our scholars that are not responding to tier 1 and tier 2 in terms of social emotional behavior concerns have more intensive plans. Wellness services for struggling scholars. We are building a robust mental health service here for our scholars, and it's needed. We have many scholars who are struggling. The amount of risk assessments that we had to complete over the last few years, is concerning, and just wanted to make sure that we have services in place to support them so that they continue to grow. And then our Power Up attendance plan. So truancy, chronic absenteeism, still an issue. It's an issue in the district, and we were not happy with our data that we were seeing here at Paul. And so the second half of our school year, we put a attendance campaign in place, and we call it Power Up attendance action plan. And really it is a very robust approach to addressing truancy and chronic absenteeism, where we are looking at data every single week. We are looking at scholars that we see maybe approaching concern, and we're putting strategies in place. We have attendance case managers who are meeting with scholars every single day, who are providing incentives to when they come to school, who are working closely with their parents and say, where are they? Meet me at the corner. I'll get them here, put them in an Uber if you need to, they have to be here. And so just really intensifying support to ensure that our scholars are here every single day. And it has paid off some really good results, especially towards the end of the year, when this tends to be a tough time for getting scholars here consistently, daily, and on time. We've definitely seen some growth, and we'll continue with this campaign for next year.
Excuse me, Ms. Reagan, I need to try something really quickly to see if Shamir can see.
I can see.
So moving into next year, our big areas of focus, definitely culture, climate and support, attendance, special populations, family engagement, and staff development and wellness. And I will just share with you big picture some of our targeted group work for next year. You can go to the next slide, Monty. So for culture, climate, and support, we are really building out our school counseling program and wellness team. I talked a little bit about some of our needs in terms of just data that we've been collecting, that many of our scholars need more support, and the supports just don't exist outside because of waiting lists and fees and things of that sort. And so we need to build those services here at Paul. And so we are building a pretty comprehensive school counseling program. Next year, we'll really be focused on heightening social emotional support from not just social workers, but school counselors as well. And then building out this thematic wellness calendar for the year, so that we're doing planned teaching around social skills and just making sure that our scholars have as much support as possible. We also are going to be doing a lot more explicit teaching about our way, right? The Paul way, for our stakeholders in terms of what do we expect of our scholars? What does it mean to be a scholar here at Paul? And so we are developing we're calling a Paul way operating guide that we're going to use as our resource tool to really ensure that we are doing the best job possible to supporting our scholars in terms of the Paul way. And we talked about social emotional support. For special education, we will be focused, as I said, on our structured, sheltered instructional model, secondary transition planning, case management support. We really want to build out more the support that our case managers are providing. We have full-time case managers and part-time case managers, and we want to make sure that we're maximizing the support that they can provide. We talked about our attendance plan. Next year, our campaign is called Show Up and Show Out. I'm really excited about that. We're going to be doing some intense summer outreach this summer. We're bringing on a couple new employees they're really going to help to do some attendance outreach support for some of our scholars that we've identified are struggling with getting here on time, and just doing some proactive work for next year. And then family engagement, being able to provide more family support, resources, workshops to our families, so that we're all working together to support our scholars. Questions?
Yeah, how many sheltered instructional classrooms do you have in the middle?
Well, that's,
Just one shelter classroom.
oh, I thought you meant sections. Yeah, we have one section, well, no, two, we have math and
Right.
and ELA.
Across.
So we have two teachers that teach across all of the scholars.
And how many students?
So we have because we do have some, yes, okay, so sheltered all day, I would say about 9 to 10 scholars that are sheltered all day.
And then how many do you have in the middle school with IEP?
Yeah, we have almost 60 scholars in the middle school with IEPs. And most of our scholars fall between level 2 and 3, and then we have a significant amount of scholars that are level 4 as well.
What do the levels mean? I apologize.
Intensity, right, so the highest level is level 4, and those scholars are getting the most services.
20 plus hours.
Yes.
Yeah, so each level corresponds to a number of hours, service hours a day.
Well as funding from the district.
As well as,
As well as funding from the district.
yeah, ranging from about $9,000 for level 1 to what are we at for
So
level
level
4?
4.
It's over 40,000.
Yeah, I think it's close.
In addition to, closer to 50, in addition to their regular per pupil allocation, then there's that additional weighted money that comes to provide services.
Yeah.
Which sounds amazing, but when you think about like some of our level 4 students who have dedicated aides, the money that comes with them is totally expended on that staff member, which means that they're technically not contributing to the cost for all of the other services that they need to receive. So that was previously a big budget initiative of the mayor before the craziness happened with the where we are now with the $400 million that has to be cut. At some point in time, it was on the table for students who needed dedicated aides, for that to be funded outside of that additional the additional monies that you were receiving, because otherwise we are in essence educating those students for free.
And we have 145-ish scholars with IEPs across both schools, and I think this year it was like around 60% were level 2 or higher.
A little bit higher.
Higher, yes, it is.
Higher.
The level, I think it was 30% that were level 1, and then the rest are level 2 plus.
Yeah.
And most of them fall in the level 3 and 4.
So you're gonna do this in the high school next year?
So we have we have sheltered instruction in the high school.
Oh.
We don't have any scholars that are sheltered all day in one setting because, of just it's very hard to staff that. But we want to ensure that for all of the classrooms that are sheltered, that they're getting the most support possible, and that our programming is similar, right? So that their experience is similar from setting to setting.
Span.
All right, so as you all know, the first probably 5 or 6 years since Dr. White's come into the organization, we spent a lot of time developing what we termed as an infrastructure, systems, processes, and routines to support academics. And so what we really focused on last year and then really deepening this year is the intentionality of the impact of all those structures, systems, and processes. And then the second thing we really focused on is the quality of the academic interventions and supports that undergird what's happening in these formal structures that we really concretize. And so first I want to talk about the use of data. My position transitioned to a title now that says academic accountability and organizational improvement. And so for me, that spoke very significantly to helping the organization to get more intentional about a strategic way to ensure data live beyond the accountability metrics, live beyond what was happening in the classroom with student work, but really data coming alive in all of the groups, structures, teams across the organization, even the scholars, as Rose talked about when she spoke with scholars owning their data and IEP needs. And so one key piece that's been a really intentional strategy this year that we piloted last year. And so we started second semester last year with just our senior leadership cabinet, which are assistant directors and our head of schools. The organizational metrics review process is intended to have a very strategic cadence of all of the key metrics across organizations. So it impacts academics, it impacts culture, it impacts operations. And to think through what is the cadence of what metrics need to be monitored by every team, from our level to school team level to culture team to ops team to talent team, et cetera. So what is the cadence for that? And then how does that help to drive for all of these teams, their meeting structures and the focus of their work? And the specific example I will give you is, and this is gonna be a bit of edgy speak, but the traditional school team meeting can sometimes morph into conversations about field trips and the potluck coming up, et cetera. And that is valid and that is important. However, we wanted to make sure we were strategic about, yes, we want to address that ongoing tactical, culture, environmental work for our organization. And the bedrock of all of our meetings is going to be about the cadence and progress of these metrics. Monitoring metrics is not new to us this year or last year, but the intentionality of the strategy of training, and this is part kind of the hidden agenda training of leaders too. And so the intentionality is the training of a mindset of how you strategically consider data and the data points that are showing evidence of improvement. And so that has been a big lift. We're really excited. This was the first year implementation across school teams and network teams. And it was some interesting conversations, mindset opening, and just pushing into areas outside of comfort zones. That is really an exciting journey. Also, I think another thing that's really been a promising outcome of this work for this organizational metrics view is our focus on microgroups. So microgroups for us, the focus on microgroups is not new, right? I mean, we have the best triple S department in the South of the Mississippi, like focusing on our L scholars, our SPRE scholars, our multilingual learners is a new terminology that's been used in most accountability frameworks. However, Aspire this year has formally shifted to, as you all remember, it's been kind of a year by year stair step of all these meetings to finally finalize it, to our performance framework not being solely driven by the data point of overall performance of entire grade levels and entire schools. Our data is specifically driven by the unique calculation of the performance of every single microgroup, including our economically disadvantaged scholars, et cetera. So we really have to shift and think about, we've always tracked this data for the sake of supporting all of our scholars with unique needs, but now we gotta really think strategically, getting to this next level that we will be going to regarding how do we ensure that our tier one, all scholars are being addressed. However, our scholars who are deemed economically disadvantaged, I always like to put that in quotes, at risk, multilingual learners, it's about 6 indicators. So that's really been a unique shift for us as a senior leadership team to really think more strategically about that from the standpoint of accountability.
You can go ahead, I was waiting for the click.
I was like, okay. Okay, I'm sorry, Monty, we were not coordinating well. Let me focus. So, and then, so refine how we measure progress and elevated data as a focus of the meetings. Okay, so there's big work around that, and you'll hear about how we're moving towards the next level for that. Manya is implicitly letting me know that I need to speed up my pace. Formative assessment data, not new, but what I would like to emphasize this year is for the first time, we have moved to a platform pilot for math only this year for pair assessment. So for those of you who have been on our journey for the past 7 years, you know, we were with Illuminate, we've been through a lot of platforms trying to find a user-friendly way for teachers to access data to be able to use it in real time in all of our structures. And it's been a struggle, right? And we refined. We piloted pair assessment platform, which allows for error analysis. Teachers can get real in-time data, just all these beautiful things. We're not even having to convince math teachers to use it. They're excited about it. So we're really excited about a very successful pilot for that, which we do believe has contributed to our increased scores and ratings for some of our interim exams. I'm gonna go on to learning recovery and I'll expedite this. So for learning recovery, as you all know, our journey over the past few years has been going from a season of not having a learning recovery platform in you at all, dealing narrowly with interventions like Math 3 180. Pandemic comes, and so post-pandemic, we make the organizational decision, let's have a strategic learning recovery intervention process that impacts all scholars. And we started off with Achieve 3000. I think we stayed with that for 2 years. And Achieve 3000 gave us some boost to our student progress, but we realized big picture, it wasn't strongly aligned with the way we need to be aligned to rigorous standards. And so we shifted to IXL and Reflex as main learning recovery interventions, and just so excited with how the staff have embraced it for the most part. This has been our first year of implementation, and especially in our middle school, sustained implementation, sustained work, and very effective work of instructional specialists in folding in the work of intervention into the work of supported students. So it's not teach algebra and then what are you doing for intervention? And that's going to be a point of growth we're going to continue to deepen. And the students are excited about it as well. So really excited about a very successful first year of that. And we really do feel like we found an intervention platform that we can stay with for at least the near future. Small group instruction, we're deepening that. We're in our second full year of our illustrative math curriculum, which has been I think post-pandemic with the struggle that all of us are having across the nation with moving that metric. Kendall Hunt Math allowed us to have a curriculum different from Engage New York with more resources that we could use for differentiation. The main thing that our teachers were struggling with and that we were struggling to support our teachers with when we first came out of the pandemic with our former math curriculum, which was Engage New York, was it was very rigorous the way we wanted. It was a struggle, particularly for some of our new teachers, even some of our middle-of-the-road veteran teachers, to figure out how to use that rigorous instruction and condense it, et cetera. So we really feel like we've hit a sweet spot with illustrative math and expect to stay with that for the near future as well. And then response to intervention, there's been several iterations across the years. I'm looking at Rose because at one time Rose had response to intervention as well. We feel like we've gotten to a spot where we're more research-based with our strategies. I won't go into more detail than that, but we do feel like we have the structures in place. You know, we're a structure, process, organization, so we feel like we've gotten that set, and we just have to streamline it to see the scope of students that's impacted. And then lastly, we gave updates at the end of the advisory free of all the wonderful things happening in CT, so I won't repeat that. The competitions, we have some students going on the trip, TSA, for those who are officers that are going on that in a couple of weeks, because there's a lot of excitement about that. We successfully finished year one of our informational tech CT program, really excited about that. It was a long journey with that Perkins grant, getting all that in place. The kids have enjoyed it. The teacher and instructor over the class is really buying in and owning it. And we hope to use this opportunity to build his leadership and his teacher capacity as well. We're getting sustained growth with ATC. You know, we're maxing out students who are in it because the OSCE stopped us because we use as much seats as we can. Why advocates every year for the unfairness of that. But we're really excited about the continued impact.
And this year, their graduation is this evening, and the valedictorians of the informational technology course are both from home.
Yeah.
Yeah. And last year, our salute, he had the salutatory.
Yeah.
So we show up and show out in that program every year, which is why we're like, give us more seats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we are looking at this year, we increased the number of 10th graders in dual enrollment. And if you can just go ahead to next year, you can put the whole slide out there and I'll be a succinct make idea. So for use of data, our work for next year is we're going to deepen our work on our micro groups and the problem solving around those subsets of scholars. We are working on making our metrics work more public. So right now it's living within senior leaders, school leaders, et cetera. We are going to be bringing grade level leads, teacher leads into this work so it can become more public. We're going to expand our peer assessment platform to all to all content classes next year. And so again, it was a pilot this year, and I'm smiling because we usually have to think at this point on the strategy of, okay, what's going to be our communications volume strategy, et cetera. Everyone is so excited that that work is minimal right now. So we're really excited about that. For learning recovery, we're going to continue to focus with our same platform. We are working on refining our skill selection process, especially for the high school, to increase the impact of what's happening in high school, but we believe it's the right intervention strategy. We're going to continue with our illustrative math and response to intervention. We are definitely streamlining it to narrow the scope and leveraging our academics team and our instructional coaches So the main idea is embedding as much as possible the work that teachers do on student data and the work with their coaches, including response to intervention, learn recovery, et cetera. So we're moving towards folding that all into the structures intended to support teachers with supporting scholars. And then lastly, with CT programming, really excited, partially because we were in a situation we did not expect. So this year with the AB schedule for high school, we realized that it provided more opportunities for space for students to take things at high school level, for those of you who may even have form of life. So it's opened up the door for us to address a challenge that we've faced for years, which is being a small, single-site charter and not having enough staff to have the elective offerings that a comprehensive high school have. And so we were able to leverage some of our model that we started this year and bring on a series of elective course offerings. I'm smiling on one hand, there's gonna be a lot of work around selecting curriculum and training and all that. We're excited about that. We're increasing our AP course offerings. Next year, we're offering AP biology, AP African American Studies, and AP psychology. And then we're going into year 2 of CTE programming. So we're excited. We're gonna get a new 9th grade cohort to start there. Remember, it's a 4-year program to end in industry certification. And then we're gonna continue to expand our scope of 10th graders and dual enrollment.
I just want to connect that really great development with what we talked about earlier around building an operational infrastructure. For years, we have had to outsource the task of master scheduling, and the internal team understands leadership and in previous years did Herculean work to connect with our external vendor to try to get the best, most useful master schedule that we could ever possibly have. The reality of it is that though when you do not control it and you're farming that out, the quality, the responsiveness, the deep understanding of the overarching goal, it's lost in the consultancy. And so we were able to find the Power School guru, that is Ms. Kirk, that joined the operations team, which is why we've been able to do all this internal work around the Power School system, part of which is now for the first time in the 9 years that we've been together, actually owning our own master schedule process. And immediately we started to evaluate the staffing structure in December. We conducted, actually November, we conducted our first in-depth analysis to look at, class sizes, whether or not we were fully utilizing all of the human resources in terms of our teaching staff and like who was teaching, how many, and map that out. Tried to make some fixes for second semester before we ultimately made structural decisions that would get us to this place where we could add these offerings for our students. So just an example about how, as we're building out the operational infrastructure, there's some aspects of our internal academic programming that we're able to improve because we are now maximizing resources because we own, the processes and we're not farming them out. Any questions for Stan? All right, and last but not least, our HR and talent, which is undergirding all this work, because you can't do it if you don't have people.
Thank you. See you all again. As my team was putting together the slides for this, we couldn't believe that we've been doing this for 8 years. Because it progressively gets harder and every year we're like, we're out of here. Not out of call, just not doing this work because it is getting harder. But we're very lucky at home. We have a talent team that has had consistency for the last, haven't had any turnover. And so that allows us to kind of build on the processes and move us from good to great. We started, when I started, there was about 4% of degrees conferred in the US for education. We're down to 2%. So the colleges are not graduating teachers. We have less traditional teacher track education programs, and the teacher pipelines for career changers have disintegrated in years as well. We had a number of partnerships last year with NYU and various ones that are based here in DC, and we noted as we reach out to the participants each month, the decline in coaching for them, and it just wasn't a great fit for Paul. They weren't ready to do the work that we need to do.
In addition to that, because of our current landscape, we're no longer able to support teachers that are coming in on H-1B visa. And that takes away some of our recruitment as well. We definitely have always had, really great group measures in Jamaica and Turkey. Had a couple years ago, our science team was from Ireland, which was awesome because we had partnered with Connect USA to bring some teachers in. We don't have those resources. And I bring all that up because the first thing up there is retaining and recruiting high quality staff. It's difficult, and so I'm really glad that we're still able to do that. I mean, our primary job is keeping this building staff and keeping us in compliance, so many things. So that in itself has been quite trying, but very, very glad to have a team that's been working around that. One of the things we've done is increase our social media status. So we have a call town page where in many aspects, when we've asked candidates, how they heard about us, so we saw you on your Instagram page, try to highlight a lot of the great things that all staff do here as a way to bring in new folks, and that's been helpful. This year, we had probably about 100 less applicants than we did last year. So let's say roughly 240 applicants, which means that my team conducted 110 interviews to fill 17 spots. We have a few more to fill. We're still finishing up recruitment for the subsequent school year, but those are those numbers for that. What we were pleased with, at least this year, is I'm so sorry.
It's an anecdotal question, you don't have to answer, but as the numbers are decreasing, is the quality changing as well?
So in some areas, what I was supposed to say is one of the stalwarts that we are sticking with for this upcoming year in terms of partnering with the pipeline is TFA, and this year we were dramatically surprised at the level of candidates they brought in for their new cohort, just in terms of like their level of maturity as opposed to years in the past or experience. And so we brought on a number of them this year. We were at a space where we were no longer going to partner with them either because of the decline in quality. And then keeping them. So retention this year was really great in terms of the network. We had 100% retention. Our middle school 93%. And this is all like the good attrition. Not the folks who didn't. This operator called that regretful. 87% for the high school, again, which was tremendous. One of the exciting things, at least for this year, is that we had 100% acceptance for the offer letters. So generally, I have a whole nother section of offer letters that we've sent out that we weren't able to compete with. Now that we've changed our salary scale, we have so many great things to offer. This is the first year every time I've sent out an offer letter, it's been accepted. So that's really exciting for us.
What about the requirements? Has Aussie like relaxed requirements for new teachers?
Aussie has next to no requirements for new teachers, and so it's become upon different LEAs to like have their own requirements. Aussie doesn't require our special educators to be praxis certified, but we do. Right, and so because of that, we help pay for the test, we help pay for the prep of that test. But left to Aussie, they let my teenager do it. They don't care who's in.
The Aussie certification standards only apply to DCPS teachers.
Yeah, they used to apply to charter member friends. Yeah, they just don't care.
So you have your
Yeah. And we think it was probably on purpose, that if you weaken the educators that are coming into the charters, then you're gonna weaken the charters. We're hip to the hip top, but they haven't beat us yet. So that was it for recruitment, but in terms of retention, a lot of things that we opened up this year to just try to keep the staff engaged. We were able to expand our retirement options to our hourly employees, expand staff wellness considerably. This team has cooked up 18 different appreciation initiatives that one would have never thought of. Also really thinking about wellness as that relates to our benefits. So our goal each year is to ensure that our cafeteria benefits or health benefits for the whole team remained between 1% and 5% of an increase. The last 2 years, we were probably looking at 0% increase, and I think a lot of that is we want to ensure that we're talking to our staff about preventative care, because that keeps us on the back end from like paying for very expensive things and then not driving our rates. In general, it would have gone up 11% each year, which we can bring that back these days. This year we have a 2% increase. We definitely still focus on prevention. Twice a year we have the vaccination clinic up here. Hey, did you flu shot? Oh, no, gotcha. Wellness packages went out. I think that we started to notice that a lot of our teachers were getting colds. My team put together cough drops and lip balm and whatever you needed. Being in a space like this where I said we've had this consistency, it's more about going from good to great. And so it's really nice to have those extra touches for the staff, like, hey, we know this is happening. We can respond very quickly because we have the resources and we have the team to do so. And I think they've been really receptive to that. Wellness looking like free lunch, candy bar, just lots of different outings, keeping the team together. And recognized, because one of the things we get in our staff data frequently is like, they're doing so much work. So it's a lack of recognition that educators often feel in these settings. And so we want to combat that by letting them know that we are recognizing all folks. Excuse me. Professional development, to align with a few of our other competitors, we kind of outdid them in creating a system where each of our staff members can apply for professional development. Money's up to $1,500 per year. If it's an approved PD by their supervisor, that helps increase their commitment to us and our commitment to them. And that's been going really well. We're going to increase that. Another thing was we bring on relatively new educators. So developing TED Talk / talent TED Talk / was really fun. In which case we had staff that were already here putting together workshops on common classroom challenges, and other staff members came and they really started to enjoy it, and it blossomed a bit to where we are now working with school leaders. This was something that we would host after school, and we'll incorporate it during the day during our PD sessions. Again, just kind of like being really responsive to our survey data. We do individual check-ins with all 180 staff members twice a year. We do surveys quarterly, and my team is really always available to chat and shoot each week. So if folks we wanted to have like no foreign policy, if you come in and have questions about any of the resources that we can provide to help them succeed in their goals. And so from all of that information, taking that and being very intentional about responding to it, how does that look for PEI for next year? And so like what other gaps may be happening or challenges that are coming up while we're talking to them that we can make sure that we're addressing. I get so excited. Hold on, let me be succinct. Okay, that one. Oh yeah. Streamlining. So we also recognize an increase in cyber attacks this year. So to ensure that we could carry out our HR procedures and policies in a more secure environment, we've built an FMX platform. So then when the employees have a request, perhaps they're changing their direct deposit or whatnot, it's not coming through any email as it was before, because hackers are out there. They're busy and they're clever and they're here every day. So building out that platform for us is going to be really great. It's our first year using it, but for all of the regular requests and access to forms, just general HR forms that you need, we'll have that on there. I think that's gonna be really helpful. And then as a part of that, just, the asynchronous learning that happens in staff trainings was often getting lost. So we have compiled that now into a new system. So especially like when we have mid-year hires, you forget about how much they may have forgotten not received in terms of onboarding from, like if they've come from August when we do a full week of PDI. And so now all of that is compiled and very easy for them to access. So when we do our 90-day onboarding process, we can access it, we can keep coming back to those trainings to ensure that they have the sea legs to be successful, the same as if they came in August.
And also requiring them, if they did not go to new staff orientation and they were mid-year hired, they do have to go to new staff orientation if they're coming. So HR makes sure that they're brought up to speed in so much as possible, but you still have to come back in August and do, do those couple of days with us as a new staff member.
Yeah, so it was, I mean, it was a lot of work this year, but we've had, some really great successes. The team has been really excited about what they can do next year. And what's great about them is they're definitely in a servant leader type of way. They always kind of like, what can we do to help the teachers? What other ideas will support the staff better? Lead with compassion and with compliance is our motto for here. Compliance is a huge thing. So we're also, the Department of Labor disintegrated a bit, but when we do get our audits each year, we're really glad to always be at 100% compliance from them. Don't know, go here. And one of my favorite challenges that I just really want to highlight this, and I'm gonna zip it up. Getting folks to move, and it's so important. And we started a walkout challenge here at Fall, and our staff has collectively logged in over 20,000 miles. So again, with the preventative, I'm adding in just for staff celebration because they've all won awards for having the most amount of steps that week. Engagement, but also cleverly playing upon recognizing that we still pay for benefits and what does it look like and how can we keep you and motivated, and then just connected to your community. So oftentimes it was groups in the school. It's been really great community. So it was a hard year, but we had a great year. Any question?
All right, and with that, I'm going to let the E team leave. Thank you all.
Keep up the good work, ladies.
That's great. And as they are leaving, I'm gonna ask Maya to put up our slide deck, and I'm gonna be mindful of time. What time is it? That's 8. What am I? Yeah. I got bacon. And so by all means, grab some refreshments or whatnot. I'm gonna go on and transition us, and I'm gonna move a little more quickly because I think that some of this, a lot of this information is in your board book. That you can go back and revisit as everyone gives Stan hugs.
The no comment certificate that you did not fit here.
I don't know. We tried to give her a party, she insisted that, so we could not.
We're done.
All right.
It doesn't look like this.
Because we're gonna get out of here. by
We're all completely focused, it just doesn't look like that.
So moving on, so as you all know, we are entering the third round of strategic planning. That's maybe not it. Yes, this is the third round. I can't remember.
Third round since you've been.
Yes, since I've been here, because we shifted our model from 5-year plans to 3-year plans. Because when I came on board, we talked about the fact that we were in a very transitional space as an organization and needed to develop a plan that reflected, some of the core structural work that we needed to do. But that we should not be needing that same type of work for 5 years. And we should be able to come out of it in 3 years, and we did. So then we developed a second 3-year plan, because at that point, we had then come into the COVID era. We sunset a strategic plan in the middle of COVID, took a year, we kind of tread water, and then built our next 3-year plan, understanding that the changes and transitions were such that we again did not need to build out a 5-year plan because there was so much that was going to happen. And so now here we are in our third round of strategic planning, and while it is also a 3-year plan, there's a bit of a different spin. If you'll click to the next slide. So always remembering our mission, which guides all of our work and most definitely our strategic planning process. If you'll click to the next slide. But what's different about this round of the strategic plan is that we actually just culminated. We are ending our 25th year of existence as a charter school. And as I shared with you all by way of email, our review process was a night and day experience from what we went through after 20 years. You know, some would call it a bit of a love fest, which if I felt in a different way, I would enjoy the love fest more, but it was a love fest nonetheless, and it was one that was well deserved because of the very hard work of the staff and the board, and then just the collective body of all public charter schools. So I was very happy to be able to get through that 25 years. But when you think about, you know, the number 25, and in my own life, every time I turn a new age, I always go and look up the significance of that number. For me personally, I always look at the biblical reference to that number, and sometimes it's something that's really meaningful and serves as kind of like the theme for that period of time. And when you think about the number 25, it's symbolic and representative of harmony, balance, and most important, a new beginning. It signifies a quarter century of life and really calls for reflection on growth. And we have been in that reflective place all year long. And thinking about just like the wins that we've experienced, the ways of operating, and just also just what mountains do we need to start marching around and climbing up, and which ones do we need to say goodbye to? And so what I will say is that moving into this strategic planning process, it was a very different experience from any of the other ones. Not because we have arrived, as it relates to where our students are academically, or our social emotional programming, or even, you know, our staffing and those types of things. It's not that we've arrived, but we are very clear about how we need to operate in those areas. Those areas are well resourced. The path is clear. And so what this plan has allowed us to do is to vision beyond the 3-year marker and to think much more long-term, like in the 10-year scope, and really future cast what Paul Public Charter Schools should be at year 35. And so if you would, in your if you'll click the slide, Bundy. If you will go into your folder, there is a document that's called Vision 2035. 2035. And I'm gonna give you just a couple of minutes. I want you to take a read over that vision, and we'll spend most of our time here, and then I'll just do a high level overview of the strategic plan, giving you all that time and space to read it and internalize it. And Kimba, if it's okay for us to, I know we usually vote on the approval, if we can do that in August instead of tonight to give
Time to digest it.
yeah. Okay,
I'm okay with that.
okay.
Mine is, will that be included in notes, just cause me and my member not friends?
Yeah.
Already have recording and.
Okay, perfect. Just so, thank you.
And so the document is called Public Charter School, a Vision for 2035. And when you finish reading, just give me a thumbs up. Everybody good? Next slide, Bundy. So, just wanted to kind of engage you all in a couple of processing questions as you read through Vision 2035, which I tell you, we have the best group of consultants who have helped us get through here. And as you all know and experience, beyond the executive team, into our senior leadership team, our school leaders, we are a very tactical group of people. And so getting us to woosah and be okay with dreaming without having to at the same time think about the tactics, it was a different space for us to occupy. Also, when they said, let's talk about Paul 10 years from now, it's like, what? But we have some things we need to do next week, 10 years. But it was a really compelling and important exercise for us to be engaged in, and then to pull in members of the school community in as well. So for you all, just with this first question, which part of this vision narrative is most inspired or resonates with you, and why?
Let's start.
Uh-huh.
So, where it says that at Paul, the transformation begins with the adults.
Yeah.
I think that is so very important. That resonated with me. That is what I believe.
Yeah.
You know, the adults set the tone for the building, they set the tone for the learners, as you call scholars. And I think that is profound. That's where you need to start. And one thing that I will say, I'm sure that you all talk about how that's going to occur, because that's one thing to say it, but there are many systems that you can utilize to ensure that.
Yeah.
And so that resonated.
Yeah, awesome. Other thoughts?
That's exactly what I was gonna say, that was the part that I saw first.
Yeah.
That I saw first.
Yeah.
Well, I have to come in then, because I have to say, I mean, you would have thought, knowing me as you do, that I would point to the part about global citizenship, but honestly, the part that I'm the most excited about is what you're describing as the adult culture, because in my own experience as a teacher, I know that if you are in a place like that, then you will do anything to make great stuff happen for
That's
kids.
right.
And so to be a place like that, anything becomes possible.
Yeah.
You know, things you never dreamed of.
Yeah.
If you can provide that kind of environment for your adults,
Yeah.
it's really exciting.
Yeah. Anything else before I go to the next question?
So quickly, just for me, it was the part about the scholars.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is the purpose. This is why this group exists, the adults in the building exist, the building itself exists. And if we think about what collectively is trying to be done for 10 years from now, the part where they talk about, you know, they don't just leave.
Yeah.
The impact of what they experience while they're here goes with them forever outside of this building. And if I think about what we need in 10 years from now, the young folks that are being taught and groomed and cared for and nurtured and inspired here,
Yeah.
feel better about 10 years from now.
Yeah. So Jennifer,
Yeah, so what resonated with me also is the part about the scholars specifically where, you know, they have an understanding that their presence and their purpose makes their work better. Having a lot of talks about young people and their self-actualization and the impact of social media, thinking about all that right now, and how this would be a place for them to but to understand that and to be in an environment that would allow them to not just gain that here, but to still be connected to it because they understood what they got from Paul. And for them to invest because they're part of this community for life.
Yeah.
You know, whether they go to college or become entrepreneurs or take different career paths, this might be the last place where they have this kind of collective learning experience with all these adults around them supporting them for the future, and that felt very inspiring to me. And like Pam said, it makes me hopeful for the future.
The thing that stood me, I probably need to say the first part, I was a teacher for a decade and then left the classroom because. For many reasons, but in part of what sits here is that a lot of the things we said about what we needed to do with children weren't actually made for children. And the way they framed them could not have happened in buildings because they weren't preparing their leaders, preparing their students, giving people the resources that they need. And they created goals that didn't reflect where that building or that school district or whatever was at that moment in a way that was achievable. This is something that takes all of those things into effect, and having both served on this board and gotten to know your school leaders and now being a parent with a child who is at that school, I now, like, I'm reading this and I can see Paul getting there where I've read these statements before. And known just in the formation that they were just words on paper and not a forecast of what was to come.
As a parent with another part that stood out to me is as a parent with a child in the 10th grade, 11th grade next year, is this part of her learning independence, her learning how she take care of herself, her learning responsibility, because she needs to learn that.
Yeah.
So that she can go on and be okay, and then I can be okay. She has nothing on it, she's okay.
That's right. So as you imagine this vision.
Can I share?
Oh, hi, Shamir, yes.
Hi, I'm still here. Well, the whole thing was like even just the process of like engaging you guys in like imagining, because I feel like as adults, that's something that we lose and we kind of get stuck in like what's there. But if you've ever had a conversation with me like longer than 5 minutes about like education and my stance, like I think this is the 1, 2, 3, the fourth paragraph where it talks about learning is active and dynamic, and that the scholars are not just absorbing information. It's like that really resonates with me because like kids understanding that they are in the driver's seat of their educational journey and that this is not something that's happening to them, like is what I think like will like transform like any system that we have when they understand their power and control and that things aren't just happening to them.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. As you imagine this vision becoming reality, what evidence would you hope to see when you walk through the halls of Paul in 2035? Like when you come to visit during the day, what do you want to see? 1 or 2 things.
The kind of thing that Shamira was just describing means that your classrooms look different, right? So what I would imagine is you walk into the halls and you're seeing classrooms that are really active, with a lot of activity, maybe to an outsider even seem like slightly chaotic.
Yes.
Like, does somebody really know, are they all doing what they're supposed to be doing? Because kids are really engaged and they're not sitting passively, right? So, and you'll see people all around in different places in the building, like you might see, you know, some kids will be in the hallway, but they'll be like sitting in a circle doing their thing because they just stepped out of their classroom. You'll see kids just engaged in different places because they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna keep
I-
going. Oh,
sorry.
Shamira.
Sorry. Like I would imagine like walking through the halls, it would be less of a focus from adults on controlling and managing student like behavior, because the focus is on the academics and the kids are like the ones that are kind of navigating like the school. So there's nothing that would like you would question if you saw kids outside of class, because if they're outside of the class in the hallway, they have a reason that's academically grounded.
That's right. And I want to take what she just said to the next one, which is which aspects of the vision challenge us to stretch our current thinking or operating norms the most? When you think about what both Erin and Shamira said, what do you think about that, Sarah? Challenge us.
stretch our thinking?
It is, one of the challenges about being a leader in a school was they use a phrase from one of my early careers is that when a fish starts to go bad, it starts to stink at the head. Okay, and you have to keep the head screwed on properly, providing the leadership and particular leadership team, so that provides the pathway and the direction cohesiveness of the team. And my wife used to work for a company that provided services to the NFL, and she worked with the Redskins and the Ravens team. And she said there was a night and day difference in terms of the general manager's office and how the managers behaved, which was separate and apart from the team players. And the team players were victim of that dysfunction at the head office at the Redskins versus the Ravens. Because the Ravens was a very spirited, we're in this together, we have a sense of purpose, you know, we might not have a linear path to get there, but we know what the destination is and we will do an audible to get there.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge is, and particularly with, you know, this family, is keeping that leadership team intact so that it can blaze that trail, so it can set examples, so it can percolate down.
Yeah, yes. And it also means, this is my favorite question. It also means that some of the ways that we have done business, we can't do it easily. The change, I was like, there's some of the structures, that's right. Because that vision doesn't hold the same cadence and structure and regimen that to get there, that the way that we have been functioning required. And I think what's really scary is that structure I know it makes me feel safe. But I think we also are recognizing that there comes a time where we want to be bigger than our container that we built. And so how do we start to push up against the walls of that and to expand it a little bit? So it is okay for kids to do thinking in the hallway. Because you build to that and you release it. And then you understand the process of cultivating it and molding it when it's now in this new bigger container that you have to relearn how to operate. And that is what is arguably one of the biggest challenges for us right now, which is our container feels safe, but to get to this, you have to be okay with releasing a little bit more, so that growth can happen. And that feels scary during a time when key team members are transitioning. And children are changing. And
Yeah,
children, and the world is not the same.
It's not, and that's, so you use the word container a few times. And that's too limiting. Because it, in and of itself, it's about containment. And when you look at companies like Amazon and Google, what their space looks like, it's not contained.
Yeah.
People don't work in offices or even cubes
Yeah.
anymore. So when I thought of this question, how I would answer it, this facility, this container doesn't look like a traditional school
No.
any longer.
Yeah.
You would have far less classrooms than you do open space of creativity and innovation.
Yeah.
And that to me is actually preparing young folks for what they will step into in the future.
That's right.
Because where the last places that I worked, they never looked like a traditional building.
Right.
And it's literally getting comfortable with changing what traditionally feels safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the stretch.
Yeah.
I would add to that, I think it really involves people changing their own minds about what it means to be a teacher and what it means to be a student. What is a good student? A good student isn't somebody who does all of the assignments that the teacher says and ticks all the boxes and goes through the rote work. And a teacher isn't somebody who has control of the classroom and carries on lesson plans. So changing that mindset about what it means to be a good teacher, and what it means to be a good student is really hard work. Because it's deeply uncomfortable, and part of the reason it's uncomfortable is because the implication is what you've been doing for, 5, 10, 20, 25 years as a teacher
Two spots.
is wasn't the best thing for kids,
Right.
right? And that, I mean, who wants to admit as a teacher, you devote yourself to kids because you care more about that than anything else, and then to have to say, wait a minute, you're telling me for all this time, maybe I wasn't doing right, wasn't doing the absolute best for kids, so anyway, that's a longer conversation, but I think changing your mind about yourself is the hardest work.
And part of that is thinking about the world that we're graduating kids into is not even the world that we graduate. The class of 2024 graduated into a different world than the class of 2025. And how we equip the kids in 2024 to survive and thrive is totally different from how we needed to equip the kids in 2025 to thrive and survive. We don't live in the same country. The safety is different. Opportunities are different. There was a time where going to work for the federal government may have been aspirational. You could get in there, get in a, what you call it, a 13, 14, 15 series and live high off the hog. Like, you know what I mean? Like, those things were very real. Like, never in a million years would you have associated instability with taking a federal government job, period. It was known as the stalwart of stability, especially when you live in a place like Washington, DC. It is off the table. Because even if it is built back, you will never forget how very quickly it was dismantled. And so the way that we even think about preparing our kids, even what we were doing was the best, in steering and making these opportunities open and available has totally changed and shifted. And so it's not about what we weren't, adults not doing what they thought was best. It is that notion that we've been predicting years ago about living in a very rapidly changing world. Like, if you really don't sit in that, whether it's technology, or just the job market and availability, or rules, policy, law, it's rapidly changing. And those that will survive are those who are the most flexible. Yes, who can self-regulate, and know how to both advocate for themselves and that they're resourceful. And so to get to 2035, we had to get through 25 through 28. And for this first iteration of strategic plan, under the umbrella of this vision, there are 5 big strategic priorities, and I'm gonna start with the one that I too am probably most excited about, and it had this epiphany way back, actually probably last year in October. But you collect data, and then now it's a strategic priority. And that's around this aligned organizational culture. And that is all about the adults. It is 100% about the adults that work for this organization. Because to expand the container, to allow us to take bigger risks while we maintain progress with our students, so we have to keep our eye on the ball. We can't go all the way far left, but we also can't stay far right. We've got to make sure that there is an alignment, not just in terms of our beliefs, but in terms of the way that we function and show up for our children day in and day out. For a long time, the staff has heard me talk about the fact that we have a playbook and our playbook works, and it does. There have been different cogs that have come in and out. There wasn't always, a Kristen Yoakum. Ms. Reagan didn't always hold culture. That's a new shift. Murchison used to be a team of 1.5, her and a part-time person. Span was here, she took a year off. I was here, in different ways, and we've all held different things, but what has never changed is that we have a book of plays. And we run those same plays. What the issue is not that we need to build a playbook, but the adult culture sometimes undermines or the plays that are in the book, or doesn't execute properly or consistently. And so there is work that has to happen to make sure that as we are visioning what the plays are in that book, that the adults are in line with that, and that we are all moving forward, and that they see themselves not just as a critical part of that team, like the Ravens, but that they understand that when you don't execute, it impacts everything and everyone. That one person making a decision to not row in the right direction, to not carry the ball in the right direction, that impacts the entire team. So there is this kind of spirit of the core that we really have got to work on generating, and it's a huge lift for us. There is this alignment, and there is this shrunken window for misalignment, where how quickly we address cases and instances where we see movement is not aligned with where we're trying to go, so that we're not derailed or slowed from reaching what, accomplishing what we need to accomplish for our students. And the other thing that I would say is that this is super important. If you haven't had an opportunity to read the expose that the Washington Post did this week on attendance and truancy in Washington, D.C., and then also on the impact of violence in DC, there's a series of videos that they are profound. We're using them in our leadership retreat next week, in July, and when staff come back. Our children are actually not okay. They are not. And so we've got to get to a space where the adults, because we do have what I am now calling adult privilege, I feel like you are privileged if you are grown and living in this society, in this environment, because you have the grown privilege to make decisions that can help you, move around and navigate to a certain degree around some of the terrible, crazy things that are happening in this world, in this city. Whereas a lot of our children don't. They are at the mercy of whomever the adults are in their life. That includes every single adult human being that's in this building when they get here every day. And so how we receive them, engage them, and take care of them, it matters. And it matters more today, actually, than it actually even did last year this time. The second organizational priority is around the scholar experience. And so what children experience when they come to this school, beyond the very robust academic programming, beyond the improved, very lively classrooms that generate interest and make them want to make sure that they show up for school, we understand that there is an aspect of their character that we really got to focus on developing that is about them being responsible citizens, independent thinkers, and leaders. So there's some compelling programming that we're partnering with a company from California that's going to run a whole track for the entire year of programming for our male students and for our female students. And if there are children who identify in either group, then be it so, they go where they best feel like their needs are met. But what's important is we understand that there are unique challenges that those children are experiencing, and we've not built a space where we are consistently coming back to address what that looks like for them. We are tackling for the first time in a real way what it means to be a global citizen. And so that is that international programming arm that Erin and I talked about a long time ago. That's not about necessarily visiting the world and seeing the world, although we will not lose that. Even though right now, our president is not making it real easy to travel internationally, hence I'm having a domestic summer. But we need to help our children understand what it means that the world is bigger than the four quadrants of Washington, D.C. That is a very, very real issue, and using this notion of cultivating this global mindset and giving them international experiences, even from where we sit, so that they understand and value other cultures that are out there, so we don't see any of them ever repeating what we see in leadership in this country today. That there is a humanity that comes when you start to value and hold and understand global perspectives. And that actually, without even leaving our school, we can get that because our kids come from over 20 different countries. But we've not figured out how to raise that as a strength to kind of lift all of the children within the organization. So there's a tremendous amount of work we're doing there. Staff development, both from a leadership seat, Ferguson talked about the fact that, you know, we are seeing fewer and fewer people being interested in terms of coming into the field of education. Well, we want to hold the ones that do have interest differently. And so whether that is, we have created, we have a new teacher mentor that we hired for the first time this year. She was a longstanding ELA teacher in 8th grade, and we miss her in 8th grade English. Her name is Miss Joy. But she is amazing in terms of her support of new teachers. And so we're going to expand the work that she's done this year with new teachers to actually start to build out in our own internal teacher residency program. So eventually we can, you know, be our own internal TFA and start to,
But a trainer.
exactly. And start to bring teachers on as residents for a year, not, you know, holding or being the teacher of record, but taking them through a year of training and development up into the Paul Way and being champs leaders, so that we are growing our own inside of the organization to then take on those seats and doing the same thing with our leadership development pipeline, which speaks to the need to function differently as a leadership team. We have grown over the course of these 9 years to a space where, as hands-on as we have been, we did not have to, but now we have to live differently. It has to be from a leadership cultivation and development standpoint, and using tactical leadership as an entree to really intentionally develop and cultivate our leaders, both those that sit in leadership seats and those that may aspire to leadership seats, so that we constantly have a pipeline of people to pull from. Our family and community engagement, organizational culture in that family and community engagement, for me, are the two biggest buckets. Because we have gone as far as we can with certain things as it relates to our children without a very deep, well-funded, comprehensive strategy to engage our parents differently. We cannot fix some of the things that are off track, like attendance. I am buying Apple headphones, PlayStations, the gift cards, like you name it, and we are buying it, but it is still not enough. There is work that we've got to do with our families to reconnect to the value and the need and the importance of making sure that the kids get high quality education. It is not just about meeting the compulsory requirements of being in school. It is about changing the trajectory of your life. And if you're not tuned in to, you know, what is happening politically, whether it is cutting of Medicaid and Medicare, or you know, housing resources, right? Like the mayor's new budget proposes almost a 25% reduction in terms of housing, you know, for those families who need them, putting a cap of, we will help you for 2 years and then that's it. Like, school and education is an out in a different way. And so we have to help our families see that and recognize that. The other piece is that, you know, we are cutting data according to microgroups. And what we have learned in a very deep and intimate way is that our scholars that have been identified as being economically disadvantaged, I have always not liked the way that our scholars who are economically disadvantaged are talked about in the research, for period. And so I would say, as a practitioner who has worked primarily with students who are economically disadvantaged, I have put that to a place in my mind where I don't focus on it because I don't believe it to be a limiting factor. The reality of it is that their data is different. And that means their supports have to be different. Doesn't mean that they cannot, but it means that there are some things and scaffolds that our kids who are coming from families where they're economically disadvantaged, that they need them. And how we have been trying to take care of those needs is insufficient. And so that really is about connecting to the family and figuring out how to support families differently, not just to motivate them, but to figure out how to best meet the needs of their students when they get to our building, so that their kids are both here and available to learn. There is a 24% difference in the chronic absenteeism rate of high school students who are not economically disadvantaged and high school students who are. It's 24% different. 55% of high school students who are economically disadvantaged are chronically absent in this organization.
Is that about them working? Is that about them?
No,
Is it family
Supporting?
responsibility?
yes. Nope, not even family responsibility. Not about working, it's not about family responsibilities. Some of it is, the importance of school.
Okay.
How is hard, we pay for kids to get to school. We will feed you when you get here, we will also clothe you. But it is an understanding, I believe, of the value and the role of education and why it is important
What you need.
and why you need it. And especially coming out of COVID, you were home for 2 years, so why can't you still be home? It not registering that they were home, but they were still supposed to be in school. And so now that same thinking is being overlaid into a change, you know, in the world, and but behaviors have not changed. And so when you see a 20-point difference between two groups based on finances, then you've got to start rethinking your strategy for that group of students.
Sounds like which is the chicken, which is the egg, to some extent.
Tell me what you.
What I mean is. Is the lack of financing causing the lack of understanding of the importance of education in gaining finances?
Or maybe if you don't,
It's deep rooted like that, and it's very, very challenging to undo. We're talking literally decades, generations,
Exactly.
and you can't just.
It's like generational, educational wealth.
Right.
yes,
Right, and that's not done through a survey or through breakfast in the classroom. It is a deep seated public health issue that I have talked about endlessly. And the solutions are very, very challenging
yeah,
to not only understand and find, but then apply.
yeah, yeah.
Well, like I said, there's generations of course, teaching, of understanding, of teaching the understanding, of teaching that this could be
And
this.
school
it-
is a formula
Yeah.
that is a means to an end. You do your 12 years and then you go to the next step,
Yeah.
and then you go to the next step.
Yeah.
But for many children and families and communities, there's no need to go through 12 years.
Yes.
Because the next step is so completely unattainable
Yes.
to me.
Yes.
I can't even imagine
Yes.
what that looks, sounds, and feels like. So why am I wasting my time with the first two aspects of the formula?
That's right,
You know, grade school, then post-secondary school.
that's right.
And therein lies the challenge.
And so we spend a lot of time talking to kids about why post-secondary education is really important. We spend a lot of time building programming for them to engage with around, like there are college clinics everywhere, there's college signing, there are college teachers. Like, but we don't spend enough time talking to families about why it is so important and how it is accessible. It's like,
It's the how,
that it is
it's
how.
the how.
How do you get there?
Fundamentally, folks understand the benefits
Yeah.
and the possibilities that come with a 4-year, a 2-year, a trade, whatever, right? But it seems like I don't even know how, because I didn't go, my parents didn't go, my grandparents didn't go, and my great grandparents didn't
That's
go.
right.
And I don't know who can even tell me how.
Yeah.
To figure out what to do next.
Yeah,
That's right.
You know, Tracy, I think there's another thing, just that we underestimate those of us for whom getting to school is given, like we were talking about. When you consider the lift, the micro task, if you really break down everything that's involved with getting your kid to school every day, dressed in the right thing and with the right stuff. When you're operating on the edge of things,
Yes.
sometimes that's just too damn much. I mean, it's really hard to get your kid to school every day on time.
It's very hard.
It's really hard. And so I think we have to, you know, understand that, I don't know how you support people with that on a organizational level. But I know something about doing it personally, and it's really hard to get that to happen when people don't know how to do that and when they're operating on the edge.
Yeah.
And so I think that's
in
not,
scarcity.
right, I mean, when you just got, when that's like another thing, and when there's other stuff that's just as important to do, you know, sometimes you can't manage that one more thing.
That's right.
And it's like, what happens?
Yeah.
You know, you're 16, it's up to you now, you know, I've done what I can do, I'm gonna see if I can't get the bills paid this month.
That's right.
And
That's
if I can
right.
get you some food on the table, then that's what you're getting from me.
And it's just like that. As a parent who was well-resourced, raised 3 kids, I can tell you, it was always a relief to just say, just stay home today. Like, just say, I can't do it, I don't know, like, clothes didn't get washed, and I have a full-blown laundry room with a washer and dryer, plenty of detergent and enough hands, but still, it was easier sometimes to say, everybody stay home. Like, I need to go to work, like, it's just not today. So I get that. So then what we don't have yet is a strategy for it. And I will say our examination of attendance data, the way that we have this year, is what has really lifted this as a key issue and priority for the organization, but especially in that bucket. And so one more, and then I'm gonna give you all the next steps. Oh, Shamira, yes.
And I agree with all that's been shared, but I also think that there is, and like, not to make it political, I feel like this conversation comes a lot when talking about MAGA supporters, but I think that there is a nationwide anti-intellectual movement where people are resisting that. And so, like, just even looking at how families may feel being welcomed into the school, or even having simple conversations like with teachers. Like, I like, even in the classroom, and this has been something, like, parents would not want to talk to me because they thought I was judging them. Like, because of, like, again, like, that compounded, like, well, I didn't go to college, this person didn't go to college, and now you're gonna tell me what it is that I need to do, like, with my child. And so I think that's also, like, a viewpoint of, like, how parents see themselves within the school community.
Yeah. And so we have to figure all of that out. And that's gonna take us a couple of years. Yeah.
I just wanna say quickly, I monitor a school that had similar data around absenteeism and things of that nature. And one of the things that they did, which it was money, it was grants, they developed a program around family engagement. They call it a wraparound program. And so those families that were experiencing whatever, anyone in the building could refer them, and that those people would be engaged, and they would go and they would help the family do whatever they needed to do, whether it was to buy uniforms, whether it was to just give the child a ride to school, whether it was to buy dinner for the family, you know, whatever it was, they would do. And that alone really helped, you know, the students getting to school, help the families getting into school. It really helped, but that's.
Yeah, that's, Reagan talked about, we've been doing that for the last month, some real intensive case working based on students' attendance grades. And so it does help, and it does cost. Like, it is expensive, it is buying groceries, Uber, washing clothes, it is
a layer of social service that is nice to be able to do. But there is an arm of our organization in this next year that we're gonna have to figure out what it looks like to build that in an environment that is very unstable as it relates to budget. Because it's costly, like just in these last couple of months, we've expended well over $25,000 for a caseload of about 70 students. That's not even 10% of our population. And it's not, you know, the 55% of our population that fall in that category. So I want to give you all next steps because we gotta go on the budget. Manya is going to PDF the rest of this presentation if you'll click really quickly through it. And what you're going to find for each one of these goals is a narrative for the now plan. Okay, you already read the 2035 plan, but this is a narrative for the 25 to 28. And there's a narrative, if you'll keep going, for each of the different the 4 priorities. And then after the narrative, you're gonna go through and you'll see the goals that are aligned with the priority. So that's goal number 1. And those are the objectives for goal number 1. And then there's goal number 2 for aligned organizational culture and the objectives. And then you'll get to the next priority and it's that same flow. So it's the priority, a narrative to describe what's happening in these 3 years, the goals and the objectives that align with each goal. When we come back in August and over the course of the summer, if there are any questions, then let us know. Maybe we'll have a slightly longer meeting in August so we can engage in any additional dialogue before the board votes to adopt this as a plan, which would take effect in the month of August. Okay. Yeah.
This is not a highlight, like I think this is great work, but we also have to assume that in the time that this plan will be implemented, there's going to be that we as a board may need to change. Just because the resources that students are going to need are going to increase. Funding nationally for education is likely to decrease if the powers that be continue in the way that they are, and the stress levels that our families and that impact on their stress and the mental health of the families is just. All of the wraparound services that exist in the city are on the table right now. I'll frame it in that way. So I do want to stress that this plan and the needs of children in the city also may need to reflect a change in how we operate as a board. And we will likely need to think pretty deliberatively of what that means. I mean, we've not been a fundraising board for some time. But I just want to put on the table that we are in maybe to meet the moment in a different way in the future. You know? Because that's just what it's just on the experience of what we are all living through.
So just go to the last.
There isn't another way.
No, let's not share that. Yeah, they can look in. Thank you. Thank you, Kimber, because that's the truth. And we also understand that, you know, being nimble right now is really important. So having some of the structures that Span talked about, like our organizational metrics review, and other structures in place so that we can keep our finger on the pulse of the work of the organization that needs to happen. We have not talked about the accountability environment, which is volatile, the capital V, right now, while everything is changing. So there is both and that have to happen. And we have quite a robust summer of planning ahead of us. As we kind of reconfiguration how we are executing to make sure that we can keep our hands on all of the necessary work, but also be flexible enough to shift with the ebbs and flows of what is arguably the most unstable environment and climate that in my 30 years of doing this work that I've ever had to do this work. So with that, the last piece, if you all will go into your board book and if you'll open up the draft FY26 budget. We went through this, it's the FY26 proposed budget. We went through this in the May meeting, and I want to just call your attention there, and there have been no changes with the exception of 3. If you'll just go to the last slide in that deck. As I shared with you when we proposed this budget, the mayor's budget had not yet been submitted to the DC council. And so we built this budget out, under the assumption that the teacher, the educator block grant that we were anticipating receiving, that we would not receive that money, which actually is about $500,000. We also built out the initial draft budget without an increase to the facilities funding. The mayor's budget has been submitted to the council and has not been approved yet. I'm pretty certain that it's gonna be kicked back for some changes and shifts. But the good news is that the budget went before the council with both the educator block grant included to the tune of $30 million for charter schools, which when you just do the quick math, is about roughly $600 per child, which if we receive that would give us an additional about $500,000 to add to our budget. And then the other piece that was included in the budget was our 3.1 or 3.4% increase in facilities funding. And so we did not include the educator block grant money in this proposed budget. Because they have not yet told us what that actual per pupil allocation is. We did include, however, the facilities funding because we are confident that the council is not going to remove that from the mayor's budget. And we do in fact know how much that was. And so it has improved, what was already a good position for the organization. You can see, just taking your attention to the net cash increase line for 25-26. That went up by about $100,000 from the draft budget. Our debt service coverage ratio went up from 2.31 in the draft to 2.39, which is well above the 1.15% that we have to maintain to ensure that we're in compliance with our covenants. And then the cushion that we have in the budget before dropping below or to that debt service coverage ratio, you can see is right there on that blue line. And then we will, you can also see the number of days of cash for 25-26. So those we went through all of there are no other changes, no staffing changes or staffing shifts. The only possibility is that when that educator grant is funded, these numbers should get larger in terms of what we have in terms of our net cash increase expectancy for the end of the year.
Question.
Yeah.
The strategic plan. That begins this fiscal/calendar year.
Yeah, this fiscal/school calendar.
School,
yes.
yes.
Yeah.
So I know we just had Vanya click through it quickly, however, I didn't see any tactics with the goals and objectives, because the tactics obviously are how you get goals and objectives done. Tactics are the things that cost money.
Yeah.
How we factored that into here.
Yeah, and so there are, when we think about like the organizational culture, there definitely have been increases in terms of like our staff wellness. Monies that we're putting into there. We also have included money for that work that I talked about is gonna happen with the boys and the girls. So increasing the amount of money for like student experiences for the organization, we increased funding in those areas. And then some of it is not necessarily about increases, it's about using money that's already been in the budget differently. So we've had very robust line items for things like field trips, but it's getting more intentional about what those trips are and actually connecting it to like social emotional learning experiences for our students. We're expanding our CTE programming, and so there's additional funding that we've put into the budget in certain line items and moved it around to ensure that we have what it is that we need to fund those things.
And those are all identified to kind of work in tandem with what's been outlined in the strategic plan.
That's right.
Okay,
That's
all
right.
I think that makes sense then.
Yeah. Let me just, one additional piece, right before you vote is because this year financially has been a good year for so many reasons, whether it's the
the employee retention credit, just savings over the course of the year, the fact that we actually did get a large increase in per pupil funding this year. We also are positioning ourselves, you know, for things that we can purchase, like curriculum materials and resources that, you know, will be for use for next year, so that while we did not change those lines in the budget, so if we were going to spend, you know, $250,000 on curriculum tools and resources for next year, we left that in the budget. However, we're positioned to be able to purchase some of those things now. So that also opens up a level of flexibility in next year's budget, given the historically low increase in per pupil funding that we're going to receive. So because this has been such a good year, it will then result in an added layer of flexibility for us for next year.
This year's paying forward next year.
Yeah, that's right.
So we do have to vote on the budget, on accepting the budget. Can I get a motion from the floor to approve the budget as it's been, thank you.
I'm on the financial committee, so
I think that makes
sense.
the budget be approved as presented last month.
Can I get a second?
Second.
And because we have to do it for the record, I'm gonna start with Shamira online. Would you like to, are you still there, Shamira?
Yes, sorry, trying to get to the mute button. Yes.
Okay, Stu,
Yes.
I'm a yes, Skylar?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, Erin,
Yes.
yes, Jen? Yes. Thank you very much, so that the budget has been approved.
Hooray.
Yay, that is great. We are going to go lightning round because we have extended everyone's evening a little bit. So we're gonna lightning round to close the final. As I do want to flag that we have one portion where we are gonna have to have a portion of a closed meeting just for one issue. So I just wanna forecast that so people know we have a couple of things on the agenda. In your board books, there is a board slate, and I'm gonna ask Erin this because she is the governance guru, Jen and Erin are the governance guru. Is there a way to abbreviate the board slate? Can we do like one vote rather than voting on the individual?
We actually don't have to vote. We do not have to vote.
Because there aren't any
So
changes.
when we revised the bylaws that we voted on in March, we changed the bylaws to say that we vote on officers, the two officers, the chair, vice chair, we vote on officers in even years. Because it did say we voted every year, but they had a 2-year term, which didn't make any sense. So now we voted even years. This is 2025, so we do not have to.
We don't have to vote, okay.
The other thing it says we have to do is confirm the committee membership, and what that has always meant is. We're literally asking everybody, look at the roster, and make sure you're in the right place, you're in all the right places, and you don't notice anybody else in any of the wrong places. That in terms of that committee roster, that it says everybody is where they actually think they are, and there's nobody missing. And then if that's, it doesn't say we vote on, we've never voted on it, we've just confirmed that, yes, that's correct.
Okay, so in the interest of time, please look at the board slate, make sure you're in the right place. If you are not, or there are changes that are needed, please let me know. And that'll be updated for August, so we can move on to the next. And so now we can move to the vote on executive session.
Anyway, you know. We have to go into executive session to vote on the executive session for August.
No,
No.
we have to vote now.
We vote now that we're
I'm
not
sorry,
having executive
I'm
session
tired,
in
you're
August.
absolutely right, I don't have to raise it.
All we have to do is vote
We
that,
all,
and
I'm sorry.
so I'm gonna say this for you, I think. There's a form in that book that in our board book. But that we are going to, that I move that we have an executive session in August.
To look to.
And
review.
sorry, I move that upon a motion that has been properly recorded and adopted, the Board of Paul Public Charter School meet in a closed session pursuant to section 2-575 Code of the District of Columbia to address the following, and the following is to discuss matters involving personally identifiable information of students, number 15.
So. We get a
I
second,
second.
thank you, Sterling.
Jackie,
Yes.
Shamira. We'll come back to Shamira. Gloria,
Yes.
Erin,
Yes.
Pam, Dr. Mack.
Yeah.
I'm a yes.
Yes.
Shamira. In Shamira's absence, it has been.
Yes,
Thank you.
sorry, the mute button is giving me problems today.
Yeah, and a couple of follow throughs just as we look forward to reconvening in August. There are a few things that are in your board book that will carry over and begin next year. We will begin the year looking at the proposal for the board map is already in all of our board books, and that is that for next year, if there are things through, especially for school performance and finance committee, if any of the things that are not in alignment with how they were done this year or don't make sense for how they are in the proposed map, please let me know so that can be changed prior to the August meeting. The additional thing that is in the board book is the board work plan. There were some minor changes in there. We had a diversity inclusion goal, strategic goal last year, and that it has been removed. And the new goal that has been placed on the work plan is one focused on the implementation, the oversight of the implementation of the new strategic plan, as that makes the most sense. On either of those documents, can you please look over them? If there are changes, let me know. And those changes will be updated so we can have those approved, and we can do that in our first meeting in August. I also want to say thanks. I wanted to say this, I'm saying it because Stan is not here and I know she hates people calling her out. Just really will, not just, I think she's wonderful because she's alumni of my beloved alma mater, Xavier University. Not, but having been served on the board and listened to her guidance and her thoughtful detail and how she addresses the needs of students and the needs of the leaders at her school, I just want to stress her leadership will be great. Missed, but also just as a person and a colleague, she has been a delight and thoughtful. Like when I was transitioning, I'm saying this just as a point of privilege, when I was transitioning my child from other schools to, she really did hold my hand and make me know that she would be okay. And also I will say that in terms of, I have a neurospicy baby who I love, who was twice exceptional, but the managing of my child in this school, the growth that I have seen of my child in this year. Now, they hated it every day, but growth is uncomfortable. And so I just want to speak to the leadership and the work that we've done as a board and the leadership of the school leadership this year. It has been a challenging year. For just in the world in general, but I just want to thank the leadership of the school for being steadfast and true and committed to the students and the student body and to the DC community. And it has been a delight and a privilege to work and support that from this position. And I just wanted to be able to say that and to thank you all of you for your service for this year.
Yes, it's been a great year. Thank you all. The work is the work. And I don't like saying hard, it's our work, like it's our job. I'm sure being a brain surgeon is hard, right? Like being a veterinarian is hard, you know, being like whatever, all of the things that we do, those things are difficult, but it's the work and doing it with the support of this leadership, I have to say, it's definitely why I'm still here. It's definitely why most of the team has been here for so long. And so we also mutually appreciate the environment and the climate that has been created for us to be able to do this work.
I also didn't say anything point of privilege. I just did want to stress the PCSB board. Tracy called it a love fest. I do want to stress it was legitimately a love fest, and there were so many accolades just from the charter school board, just for public. There was so much love and effectiveness. And it's hard to believe. But also that there's the duality of the leadership of the school was on the school board every minute of the limited time that we had to review their review of church. So yes, it was approved, but there's the very focused leadership of the school that no child was going to be left behind. Every I was going to be dotted, every T was going to be crossed. I'm hoping I'm saying this correctly out loud. And just a vigilance about making sure things that were recorded accurately and the ability to stay on. Somebody sends you a 70-page document on a Monday evening and tells you, yeah, you gotta review that and have it back. And there are inaccuracies that you can see on site, and it says, nope, you can't get an extension, that has to be back on Friday, because we have a deadline that we are up against. To then move into a volume of work that happened in those 4 days, to then get to a love fest, really interesting, but weird. But it also goes to say that we have the right leadership here for this moment, and I just wanted to say that to acknowledge that that was a huge accomplishment. I know that it was not easy and a lot of work came from it, but the school board's response and adulation and adoration of our leadership was earned.
Yeah, definitely. And we have to be also responsible with that space because we can clearly see that there are schools who don't have the capacity, whether it's the resources or the expertise, to do the work of going through a 70+ page document. And when you and I went through it, you called out additional errors, right? And get that information back, and that there are some schools that cease to exist because they didn't have that capacity, and they should not have had to have had that capacity. Our authorizer should have done better by them. And so
Also,
it
during like
was,
the third of 6 weeks of school testing is when it came.
That's right.
Of state testing when it
That's
came
right.
in. I just wanna point to
Yeah.
like that being the backdrop for it.
and so using that moment to speak up for what's right, remembering that there was a point in time when we were fighting to stay alive, 5 years ago. And even then, we still had more resources than what some of these single site, very new charters that have unfortunately decided to relinquish their charter because they don't or did not have the resources to fight that good fight. That using the position that we're in, to also advocate within the sector is really important for us right now. Yeah, because by the grace of God, there go us. We ain't going back there though. So been there, did that.
But thank you all for your leadership this year. And I'm looking forward to next year.
But just not too fast.
No, I'm also looking forward to something. But I will in August.
Yes. Thanks, everyone. All right.
Thank you.
Do you have containers if people wanted to take some of these home? Yeah, I think we have some containers if you want to please take some food home. Thank you. Oh, you must have been here. I know. It was. Thank you. I appreciate having you too. Tell me, there are outlets who are not having this experience with their work. And they are, I was talking to one yesterday. She was phenomenal. March and I came and I actually recognized her for.
I went for a job that I absolutely did not like. And yes, I like that, yes.
That's good.
It's good, yeah. No, I think I did not like it. Yeah, no, I did not like that. I did not want to do that. So I came back. About 2 months, face the work. And I bought a house and you might be with that.
Street.
I'm trying to get out of your way and walk right into the road.
Thank you.
Everyone have a good summer.
Yeah, good summer. So where are you going? You going with the afternoon? To have a great vacation, wherever it is.
Domestic.
Right. See you.
Yeah.
You walk in here looking like a baby.
I think